Malcolm was a great scholar of history. And she would say that was the beginning of her understanding, like that you have to be a scholar of history. Constantly, and that you have to keep learning, and that the more you learn, it just, that's how you change, and that is how Malcolm evolves, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, I guess that's the big arc of like who Yuri was. And I would just say from that point on, she only knew Malcolm actually was a very intense relationship, about 18 months before he is martyred on February 21st in 1965. And from that day on, she spent the rest of her life both devoted to telling Malcolm's story and being like, through many years when Malcolm wasn't that popular, really making sure that we commemorate, we remember him, we honor him through many, many years of going, of course, for everything from going to the pilgrimages into his grave to every single Malcolm thing that ever happened in Harlem every year dutifully. But also to all movements to support the rights of human beings, whether they're like indigenous movements, people fighting against everything from sort of hunger to, she was very early in joining people around LGBTQ rights, really clear that was a part of the bigger social justice movement. When a lot of people weren't talking about that, she was absolutely talking about that. So I'd say, through Malcolm and then from his death, she became much more broad, supporting movements and, of course, black movements for Black liberation, but way beyond that, movements for Puerto Rican independence, for sovereignty for Hawaii, for, so many movements for indigenous people's rights.
Yes.
Sort of in line with this understanding that people had a really basic right to human rights, but also self-determination.
Yes.
So I would say that became sort of her thing for the rest of her life pretty consistently, even though people would say, oh, she was involved with so many things. I would say the through line is that was, it was about people's right to self-determination, respect and their own, human rights. And I think, she got that from Malcolm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.